Oh, I see. Brandon is schooling me on the ways of
Broadcast.
broadcast. I thought you had to start broadcasting before you get a URL. Apparently, you don't. This internet thing might take off. You never know.
I'm just annoyed that Hangout still doesn't properly support multi-account sign-in. I have to open a separate browser to join a Hangout because
Really?
because my organization does not allow Google Plus for an organization the Google the account policies,
Oh, weird.
and it won't let me sign in as a different user like Switch users.
That sucks.
Yep.
What can you do? I don't think Google will ever really solve the accounting problem.
You
It's
know
only
what?
have gotten worse over the years.
I'm just surprised because they use it internally with a separate organization, so I would think that they're all experiencing these same problems, right? So
When I was there, we had the same problems, and this was back in 2006. So
yeah, I mean, what I've been told is that everyone internally just uses different browser profiles, like as a
yeah,
workaround. Like,
I have a distinct feeling that Google Chrome's private browsing version extension was really just to cover this use case.
yeah, well, it covers all of it then, covers all.
Yeah, right. We don't have to implement anything on the servers. I mean, just the browser can just have a new profile. It's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me send. I think Brandon's gonna post the URL in theory.
It just got posted to Hangops,
Sweet.
Twitter.
We'll get rolling. So you working from your garage? See a lot of tools in the background.
Oh, garage? No, this is my basement. I don't have a basement office. I work literally in the basement. Like like it gets down to about 50 degrees down here in the winter, which is why I have 4 space heaters. Only 2 of them turned on right now because it's spring. So
Only
these
two.
these things are great. It's like 15 bucks on Amazon. It's like 200 watts. It blows over my fingers
Nice.
because when your fingers get cold, it's impossible to type your password.
Yeah.
It's the password in particular because it's completely muscle memory, and just your muscles, the synchronization's all off when they're cold. So
Yeah. When I used to live in Rochester, New York, I would have fingerless gloves that we would use most of the time to keep typing
yeah, I got someone around here somewhere.
for emergencies.
Yeah, I like in the really cold days.
Right on. So it beats the heat, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, during the summer I don't have AC down. I don't have central AC in my house, so during the summer it's pretty decent down here.
Yeah.
It might be if we get more than a week of 100-degree plus temperatures, then it starts getting kind of humid down here. But
Yeah, yeah. All right. Ooh, I can meet people. This is cool. So today's kind of thing is open roundtable, discuss stuff. I don't have any particular topics to discuss. I know Monotorama was fairly recent. If any of you attended and you want to summarize your experience, that might be a good start.
Learn calculus.
I did that in college.
Yeah, now you have to remember it.
Yeah, I don't expect to be using Taylor series or rotational whatever the crap we did in Calc 3 or whatever. I think Calc 1 was sufficient. Maybe Calc 2. I don't know.
Oh, and go back to school and learn 4 years of statistics. 3 years is not enough.
Yeah.
That's from Tufik, who works at Metaphor. He's one of these smarter statisticians that I've ever met. Um, uh, but it's sort of like a little statistics is a very dangerous thing. People make very bad decisions based off of this.
Hmm.
Um, most of the stuff around this year's Monitorama seemed to be centered around anomaly detection and uh, alert fatigue and what else was there? It's basically like how we need to stop. Also, the whole theme of the event was empathy, and how we need to stop, how we need to think monitoring outside of just operations. But also, there was also a lot of inclusiveness stuff about gender biases and stuff like this. But a lot of the stuff that came out of it was like just applying real science to the actual concept of monitoring, and then less focusing on tooling and stuff like that, more dealing with the human aspects. And what else there is? Thinking of things that were beyond just the time series plot, like XY plots and stuff like that. And Grafana. Yeah, he got a standing ovation at the end of it, which is kind of awesome. He did the author of Grafana. I forgot his name right at this moment, but he people were very, very excited. So.
Cool. And speaking of Monitorama, I think the videos are now online.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I'll post a link to the Hangops IRC channel, and we'll put them in the somehow.
I think all but the workshops maybe are.
They're all online. They're
all online.
They're all online.
Awesome.
It was all single track. There's no breakout sessions or anything like that, unless you went and did it yourself. In which case, no, those are not recorded. But yeah, it's definitely good times. And if you're in Portland, I think he's going to try to keep it in Portland next year. Everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a little harder for the Europeans, just because it's an extra 4 hours to fly over, but it's better for the Australians and better for people on the SF. So can't please everyone.
Yeah, there was a Monitorama Europe though, so we can. Assuming Jason wants to keep doing what he's doing with those conferences, I suspect that we'll solve the time zone and the travel problem with just more conferences.
Yeah. For those that don't know, the first Monitorama was in Boston, which apparently is New York's conference center, because it costs less to fly to Boston from New York, have your conference, than to and then fly back, than it does to rent a hotel in New York.
Well, and they also have a free venue, that Microsoft Nerd Center. Wish we had something locally like this. Apparently, it's extremely easy to book a conference for some very nominal fee, under $100, I think, to book something.
A token nuisance fee.
Yeah, basically, just kind of like make sure you show up, kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Apparently, it's used by a lot of local meetups and stuff too, which is pretty awesome. It was a real nice space there too.
We have a couple of those.
DevOps Days Boston was there too.
Cool. We have a couple of those, but they range anywhere from a couple $100 to $5,000.
Yeah, there's not going to be any conferences in Chicago, small conferences like this, because there are no good venues really. Nothing cheap that's not like a hotel.
Yeah.
One thing I left Monitorama, I'm still wondering, is what the future of graphite is going to be, because there's still a lot of conversation about graphite and tooling around graphite like Grafana, but the project is languishing.
Well, there's still the main issue that most people have with graphite is scaling it up. Short of them changing how they actually store time series data, it's going to require a major architectural shift. There's still also, as far as analysis and just math functionality, graphite's still ahead of most things.
I find that surprising though, because the actual when you refer to just the time series functions that are available, I mean that's kind of it's kind of like the easy stuff in graphite. Like that's the most accessible part of graphite. It seems like that would be the easiest part to clone.
Yeah, there's also different storage backends that are, you know, the problem is that it's not like Elasticsearch where there's a whole organizational push behind it, or now with Kibana and Logstash, it's just, it's a bunch of guys on the net, or sorry, a bunch of people on the net working on a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if anyone's worked on it since I have like a year ago.
What is graphite's scalability problems?
Disk.
Whisper. It's only one machine, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, like, people were like, "Oh my God, graphite sucks at scaling," and then SSDs came out, and people just entirely stopped worrying about scaling graphite. They just put it on more machines now.
I mean, so the previous installation I had was, 250 servers logging to it on minutely intervals. So, I mean, we had no problems with it. So I don't know how many people are above 250 servers.
Yeah, I mean, and the big problem with graphite scaling is that it's very doable to scale it. It's just a huge pain in the ass, and it's a pain in the ass to maintain the scaling as well. Yeah. So you can distribute your metrics across many servers, but if you want redundancy, then it's quite difficult to have redundant metrics split across many servers, and be able to recover from a server just rebooting. You have to be doing manual rsyncs and then messy commands to dump the data from the files and pipe it back in through the whole system, repopulate missing data to get everything back into sync. There was one cool thing that Scott Sanders had published, was a few tools to actually make that a little bit easier. But it's still, nowadays people expect their scaling to be more like Elasticsearch or something, where they can add more nodes and expect things to sync themselves. And graphite's just incredibly manual.
Yeah, in a way, graphite is like three separate projects, right? You have the transport carbon portion, you have the bridge between carbon and Whisper, and then you have the graphite web front end. And most people's complaints seem to be about scaling carbon, which Vincent, you mentioned, as soon as SSDs became really affordable, those kind of constraints kind of went away a little bit, or at least for the short term. But then, like Graphite Web, there's so many other different interfaces to the web interface that presents as graphite. There's Grafana. There's probably 30 or 40 other projects. I don't think the project is really languishing, like you said, Michael. I think it's a little bit of both, right? There's a great deal of frustration around certain parts of the project, whether it's deployment or scaling or visualization. But there's a number of different small projects that are trying to solve those things.
Yeah, I do see I do see some hope in. So I mean, what I see as the easiest path to having a healthy project with graphite is to actually decouple the components, because there's three components that are very tightly coupled. I mean, we have, graphite web does reading, carbon does writing. Like, in my mind, it should be a daemon that does the time series reading and writing, and then something else that handles the display, that handles that side of things, that handles the data manipulation functions and such. And there's a graphite API project that came out. It basically rips out the Django. Rips out the Django, and provides what people wanted for years. Is many people don't intend to use the web interface part of graphite. They don't want to use Composer. They don't want to use the built-in dashboard. They want to use a lot of these new dashboards and stuff. So why even have it installed? Why have the overhead of and kind of specialized knowledge you need to deploy a Django app? Just have a simple Flask app out there that just does that data reading and writing, or sorry, just that data reading and JSON rendering.
Yeah, it's I think it's the Graphite HTTP project. That does and there's also InfluxDB. When that came out, it can consume, you can send it graphite-style metrics, like the tabular format, and then have it do things, and then Grafana can interface with it, which is still a work in progress. But that was one of the other things that the author of Grafana is looking at trying to start start some sort of company behind Grafana. So there may be future support things.
It's interesting.
Graphite starts to suffer from, I think, kind of a similar thing that Nagios has suffered from, which is that like there are limitations and people don't like dealing with the scalability issues, but they also don't want to go work on something like OpenTSDB or Influx to replace it. Like there's just this inertia that's hard to overcome.
It's a moderately complicated operations tool. If you're not familiar with the code base, like I'd probably never step into even trying to do anything with Whisper. I don't have the background to help with it.
I think that's fair. I think it's also true that the alternatives are the complaints about Graphite are generally the complexity and the complexity of scaling and the complexity of use, and that the alternatives aren't any better, right? Use OpenTSDB, at least as far as I remember, you have to have HDFS and HBase running, which has its own organizational complexities and operational complexities. So in that way, it's not really it's not an oh I hate this thing but I like the features provided by it. I wish for something that's easier to use. Like there's nothing currently that is able to solve that for you.
It's like Graphite versus OpenTSDB. It's like you either had a couple thousand metrics a second, or you had a couple million, and also with like less than 1 second precision. And by that point, were okay with the idea of running HBase and also the random shit.
Right, and you're okay with the cost of having to figure out a front end for OpenTSDB that's better than the GNU plot based one that it ships with.
Yeah, so that was the other complaint about OpenTSDB is that the default or the front end that they suggested using sucked. So Ticketmaster, it was terrible, like just hideous to look at, but I guess it worked. But Ticketmaster released Metrolix 2.0 or something like that. So looks like they have I haven't played with it, but I don't have the time to go set up HBase. But
yeah.
It looks like just the screenshots seem very pretty.
Yeah, it's good. Status Wolf is okay, but really there's just not enough momentum behind any of them yet that they can't compete with what's out there available for Graphite.
I heard some rumor that DataStax hired the Karos DB guys. It's completely unsubstantiated, but if it's true, yay, because we run a lot of Cassandra.
What is Kairos?
KairosDB is OpenTSDB, but for Cassandra in HBase and H2, I think, some sort of like in JVM SQL database thing.
Oh, I see. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
The nice thing about those projects is that if you need to do sub-second precisions, like some people do, they can handle it.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'm hoping that we can get there with Elasticsearch and Logstash, but we're not quite there yet on the storage efficiency point yet. But I think we'll get there soon. So it's all a race. Everyone's coming at it from different angles, and no one has a comfortable solution for it yet.
Yeah, that was basically Monorama. Sum it up, learn calculus, and hug each other.
Maybe we should do a calculus Hangops, stats Hangops sometime in the near future for folks who aren't familiar with that particular kinds of math.
Yeah, it'd probably be. I mean, there needs to sort of be a calculus for sysadmins, so like just a very short white paper about the words that you have to use, like derivatives and stuff like that. Things that I don't remember.
Derivatives, integrals.
Yeah. This is what this means. This is how it applies to you. This is how it'll save you time. I was talking to a friend of mine about how they do capacity planning, and essentially when they do their stress tests, it all feeds into basically 7 layers of hell, and out comes the other end an Excel spreadsheet that tells them how many servers they have to buy. But just the computation takes a week.
All right, so I'll talk with Brandon. We'll see if we can get somebody who's a little bit more experienced with teaching
I can
calc and stats
I can go.
correctly or well to someone who might be understanding.
Yeah, I can probably put you in touch with Tufik. It would be he was the third presenter at Monorama. So it was Adrian, then James Mickens, then Tufik, and then lunch.
And then worst case, I think Khan Academy has some good calculus tutorials, lectures, or whatever they call them. I'll post those in the IRC channel as well. All right. That might be enough on Monotorama. Any other conferences coming up soon you guys are excited about? Or...
SR Recon? Isn't that soon?
What's SR Econ? Other than it seems like obviously for SREs.
SREs conferences. It's yeah, it's at the end of the month, May 30th, in Santa Clara. I don't know anything about it other than someone was like, "Hey, you should go to SR Econ." I'm like, "No, I've been to the States enough this year."
A couple peers speaking at it, I think. At least two Twitter SREs, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I just went to Monodrama, so it's kind of like I have to let my peers have a chance to go someplace too. So I didn't sign up.
Velocity Santa Clara is coming up in June, and Etsy has an talk that sounds interesting lined up on how they quantify the impact of being on call on their staff. So like all their graphs of tracking like wearable data to see like how many times per night their on-call people are getting woken up, and just so they can kind of understand like how this type of work affects their people. I think that's pretty interesting sort of ops data that nobody else really looks at.
They talked about that at Monorama.
Oh, did they? Oh, cool.
Yeah. So with it, everyone that wants to do it, I'm hoping everyone that wants to do it. I'm hoping that this is not mandatory. They get a Fitbit, and they can tie in like sleep data with alerts, and then they can use that as a feedback mechanism to determine when they should actually take people off call. It's like you woke up too many times last night. Next person's on call or something like that. So you track that sort of data, and if someone gets woken up, someone else the next day will know about it, kind of thing. And that's part of the whole how to. And there's also a talk there's a lightning talk about from the hosted Graphi guys about our lizard brains and how they react to server alerts and stuff like that. So one of the thing was he's at dinner and his phone beeped or something. It was like Twitch, and the person he's eating dinner with was like, was that because you're on call all the time? He's like, yes. And there's nothing you can really do about it. It's a Pavlovian response to this terrifying, stressful event. And how do we fix it?
Yeah.
No idea. But knowing is half the battle.
All right then.
But yeah, that's sort of that's one of the. I think that's one of the. I believe this is in PagerDuty's marketing blurbs about how you can schedule overrides and stuff for people. So if someone gets woken up too many times in a night, you can go into the calendar, you can override, and you keep the schedule the same. It's just now another personnel resource is on call instead of that person, and you can let them have a night's sleep before putting them back into the fray.
That's a pretty cool idea. I hadn't thought about taking all the biometric stuff from like Fitbits and watching your sleep patterns. That's a really smart idea. It's nice to see a company actually treating their ops staff like humans too, right? Not just machines that can be on call for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and then who cares if they're stressed. Nice.
Replaceable monkeys that.
Yeah, right.
You guys are reminding me that I'm going on call next week.
Alrighty.
Good luck.
Hug.
Hugs.
Varies. My on-call can be really bad or eventless, just kind of depending on the luck of the draw.
Yeah, then we started talking about Monitorama again. So.
Sounded like there was a lot of regret from people who couldn't make it or decided that they weren't going to make it or didn't know about it.
Yeah, I told a few people in Vancouver about it, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's amazing! Oh, tickets are sold out."
It sold out pretty late though, compared to prior.
Our one was like a
rounds.
Wasn't it? It was like 100 people or something ridiculous.
Yeah, the first one was like I think I was told it was maybe 150. I think it was originally 125, and they got a few more tickets opened up. I don't remember how. I think Berlin was 200 something, 250.
Yeah, this was
I missed that one.
This is at the Armory in Portland. I don't know if that's relevant to anyone, but I think it was like there's probably seating for like 200, 250, something like that.
I think Jason said it was 400 who attended.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of people standing, so I don't know how much seating they had. There was a balcony as well too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm bad at math, apparently.
All right. See some other stuff we can bring up. Let me check the channel if anybody has any questions. Anybody going to DrupalCon? Luchans asks from the Hangops channel.
People still use Drupal?
Lots of people use Drupal. It's like one of the more popular content management systems out there.
Yeah, there was about 30 or so agencies in Vancouver that were doing Drupal development for a while. It was ridiculous.
It's a pretty big project these days. Logstash has support for it. The logs anyway.
Good old DB log.
Yep. All right. What to talk about? Vincent, what have you been working on lately?
Immutable images and how they don't work.
They work sometimes and don't work at all. What do you do with?
They work sometimes. If you have like an application that configures itself, that self-configures itself, or like has static endpoints that it talks to, like ELBs or whatever, basically DNS names, they work fine for that. You have database servers? Nope. Sensu? Nope.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before on Hangouts, but like one of the harder challenges I think I find as an ops person looking at the world, the very excitable world of like immutable infrastructure, is that if you have a fully immutable infrastructure, you have no business because then nothing can change. And so like the only things that stateless web apps work well for golden images that you deploy and never change, but like databases have to store things somewhere. Like you have to store state somewhere eventually.
Yeah.
And that can't be an immutable image, otherwise you can't write.
Yeah, what I'm finding is that a lot of the cases it has to be like a hybrid, and essentially at this point it's just turning into release engineering. You build up an AMI that, at least on Amazon or whatever, you build up some sort of disk image that has everything that you want on it, and when that comes up, you try to make sure that all the servers that come up in that, if you're using like autoscale groups, everything comes up like that. Then they go and talk to Puppet or something that finishes off the last 3 steps. And then for any other things like feature flags or like little server level tunables, you're either using some sort of clustering protocol like akka or whatever. There's some sort of like gossip thing like surf akka console, or they're retrieving their configurations from Zookeeper. Yeah, it's it's a solved problem. It's just getting people who are not used to that sort of environment up to speed with it is it's a human problem.
Isn't everything?
Yeah, especially when you have how should I put this? People who are used to more stable environments. It's like, oh, can we have like multicast? Nope. Why not? Amazon doesn't support it.
One thing, if we're interested, I mentioned this because Jordan had asked me for a review of this, but I picked up I don't know how many of you have wrist problems. I picked up an arm aid.
Does it work?
It does.
That looks like it breaks things.
Yeah, I call it my torture device. It comes with several different balls of different hardnesses, and my favorite are the harder ones. In general, though, I find it's a good tool, but you don't necessarily need this tool. I think what's more important is to kind of look up the theory behind this, the usage of this, which is trigger point therapy, which is it's part of context. I got to a point a couple of months ago where I've had RSI issues for many years, but I got to a point a couple months ago where after maybe 10 or 15 hours of work in a week, I had to take the rest of the week off because my arm was hurting so bad, and I felt like I was seriously damaging it. So I can find an Amazon link. There's a particular book that I really like on trigger point therapy that is basically an index of locations of pain or discomfort and where you manipulate on your body. So the idea is that your muscles, when they're stressed out, they start binding together because they're so fatigued they can't continue to contract and release. They just kind of permanently contract in these knots, and it tends to be the same places. The same places in different people's bodies for the same muscle groups. And so there's a technique for relaxing those muscles because when they're tensed up like that, it's shortening the muscle length, which ends up pulling on the ends of the muscles, which is where you experience a lot of that pain. And then it also tends to bind up nerves, like your arm nerves wind all the way around throughout your arm here. And so when these muscles are bound up, it pinches the nerves, and that's where you get the weakness and tingling. So I'd say if you are interested in something like that, hold off on the arm aid and first get this book I'm pasting here, and try out some of the techniques in there. And I'd say after a couple of months of being pretty consistent with manipulating certain points I've found on my back and on my arms, I'm in a much, much better place than I was. I'd been to a point where I could not use my laptop keyboard at all. Like if I used it, I would be in pain for hours the next day. And now I'm back to the point where I can do some light usage on it if I need to.
I've mostly solved the RSI issue for myself by just switching keyboards. So right now I'm just using that.
I did that several years ago, and it helped for a while. This is the Kinesis Advantage. It helped for a while.
Somebody brought one of those to CanSec West. It was insane.
I brought mine to Monotorama, actually, because I had to work.
I have the Kinesis Freestyle, which is similar but splits, so you can move the two halves wherever you want them.
Hold this up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I just spilled coffee on mine like 3 weeks ago, and I haven't gotten around to cleaning it, so it doesn't work right now.
So if you can buy the Kinesis, like can split keyboard, don't spill coffee on it.
Yeah, don't spill coffee on it. It's a decent keyboard for it's like $100, and it's like the material in it is not great, but it is nice that you can rearrange it all the time. So if you do end up in one position all the time, you can just move the keyboard, and you'll start screwing up another part of your arm instead of the one that's always irritated. But,
Right. You can not only move them closer together for their part, but they tilt independently, and you can do this. So you have a few different axes or planes that you can move them around in to get it just to your liking.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen these before. You obviously, but they have this little flappy attachment is one of the attachments. They have two different options. One actually they can open like this. I don't know if like fully vertical like that would be weird to type on, but
Seen people do it.
One of the things, and this came up with discussions with a friend of mine. There are a couple of people I know. One of them, his RSI got so bad that he actually programs with a speech recognition system, and it's sort of a customized language that he's designed, like a customized speech recognition system. It mostly involves him swearing at his computer a lot, but it then writes like some variant of Lisp.
So you're swearing into code? Where do I sign this up? Where do I sign up for this?
The second you come to do a talk at Polyglot in Vancouver, you can come meet Tavis. I think we broadcast. He did like one of the. He did the ending keynote like a couple of years ago. That might be on video, maybe. I'll go bug him later to see if he's done any videos on it. But yeah, so he came in someone else, and the third guy was complaining about like arm stress and stuff like that. Like, well, where do you code? Like, where do you practice your craft? And he's like, usually on the couch. And we're like, stop that shit now. If you find yourself sitting on your laptop on the couch, I'm getting nasty looks from my girlfriend now.
Yeah, the first thing is ergonomics. Like, get that out of the way.
Yeah,
first.
don't. If you're typing on your laptop keyboard, and you're on a MacBook, stop that. Just that needs to be the exception, not the norm.
Yeah, I found myself the trackpad is actually one of the most damaging things. Using the trackpad, holding my fingers to scroll, like holding my fingers in that static position for scrolling and stuff like that is. I mean, even now, after I feel like I'm more recovered than I've been in a long time, like just 5 minutes of that, and I'm starting to feel symptoms.
Yeah. The other thing was like, start trying to do Pomodoro or something like that, like some sort of thing where you enforce breaks.
Yeah, I have actually a nice little Mac app called Anti-RSI. You configure breaks in there, and it puts up a little transparent thing in your way, which is nice because it's only annoying, so you can ignore it if you're truly busy. But so it'll hassle you, but it's not going to block you. So it's kind of nice. Like usually you say, okay, I'll just take my hands off the keyboard for 30 seconds and roll my shoulders.
And this is also important for those of us that are working from home. Like we mentioned last week, to have barriers, gateways, blockers, some sort of signal to yourself that you're now done working.
You watching Bones again?
Yeah, definitely.
Unless you're me and you can just work 18 hours a day.
Getting a dog helps in that regard.
Dog, children.
Dogs are awesome.
My kids just wander down here around 5 or 6 p.m. and start asking me to play. So.
There you go.
Yep. I get bangs on the door. Dada.
Or cats. As Bear is, he has a couple of cats, and usually during Hangops when he was participating, they would just jump on him and show us, or the cat would show us its ass. I'm like, yay, cat ass.
So you're saying don't get a cat? Then.
No, do get a cat. If you can't do any of these other things, get a cat. The cat will make itself known. and then you'll have to pet the cat, which is, makes you move your arms in a different way and provides you with the necessary break. And eventually, every once in a while, it'll want to be fed, and you'll have to get up and do that. So it's 12:04. Should we?
Yeah, we can call it done. If you guys have any closing thoughts, this wasn't a specific topic day, so we may not have any of those. But don't worry too much. I think, Michael, you might have more insight on this than I do, but I feel like there's a lot of homeopathic style approaches to ergonomics and personal muscle health, and so just be careful of the stuff you try. And if it feels like it's not working, it's probably not working.
For real. You gotta listen to your body.
Yep. Listen. Don't be injured. I tell this to all beginning runners. They say don't get injured. If it hurts, stop. So if your arm starts hurting, your back starts hurting, you switch positions, stop working. Your health is not less important than your job.
Indeed.
If you're not going to watch any of the Monorama videos, you should watch two of them at the very least. The one by James Mickens and the one by what's his name? The guy from Spotify, or sorry, not Spotify. The one from Shopify. He linked. If you look through the Monorama Twitter feed, there's how to give effective feedback. It's an amazing video. Which I will link to the IRC channel. Feedback. It's harder than you think. By Daniel Bushin. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name.
I haven't watched that video, but I would say that might be a great future Hangops topic. Would just be on, especially if you work with engineering teams or you build things that ops and engineering use, then how do you ensure you're building the right things and getting the right feedback? That's been a huge issue that I've dealt with over the last 6 months or so. So just an idea.
Cool. All right. Well, see y'all same time next week, probably.
Cool.
Cool.
Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks all.
Good weekend.